You got the magnet on your thing.
Thank you very much.
Because I've spoken for the last half hour, I'm going to let Whitney and Chris start. In case you guys don't know the people who are in this room, that's Whitney Hoffman from the LD Podcast. That's Chris Brogan from, you name it, from Grasshopper New Media and everything. He works with the Jeff Pulver group. And I'm Mark Blevis. And this is a session on return on influence. So pick it up there.
Mark from the good-looking Canadian Podcast Buffet. No, please, by all means, start us off, Whitney.
Well, I think all of this started because I started having a conversation with Mark's wife about their Just One More Book podcast about monetization and what was okay and what wasn't okay. And we were talking about Amazon. Now, one of the things that I do is I have a podcast that's all about learning disabilities. And so I've got a lot of authors on my site who've written books, who are university professors and other things, talking about things. And one of the things I want to do is make sure that people do get a chance to go read their book. Because again, not all of these things are going to be carried in your local bookstore. And if you've got a kid with dyslexia or with developmental problems and you're not sure what's going on or what kind of help to get, you want to find out from the experts what to do before somebody is trying to sell you, some oil or some medicine or Harry Potter coming in, banging your kid on the head with a wand and making sure everything's okay. Because that's not really how it works. In that general vein, it's the whole reason why I can't do AdWords or anything else on my site, because there are a lot of people out there who are selling the instant fix for their problem. And because dyslexia or ADHD or something else would come up, that's really not going to work at all, because it's going to be sending people in the wrong direction, and it's something that's going to waste their time and money. And if there's anything my podcast is about, is it's cutting out that, particularly for parents. So we started this conversation, and how was it about the making money, and was that really the point about it, or was it really about the community? And even for me, it's the allowing the authors to get their books out is the whole reason why I have Amazon on there at all. And it's not about trying to get $2 or whatever from having sold a book. And so we started this conversation, and then Mark hopped in, and we started talking about, if you're podcasting, there's so much more that's out there that's about the community and helping people and learning. And really, you're probably not going to make money strictly off your podcast. Your podcast is almost, I think in some ways you can look at it as a soapbox. So when I get up there and I'm telling people that if you're going to look online for information, you really have to have a buyer beware mentality on what you're going to see out there. I have to look at it as, I may have $169 invested in my web hosting and money invested in my equipment, but what am I trying to get back out of this? I'm mostly trying to get back to help people who have other issues. If eventually I end up doing a book project or something else, I might make money that way. Or I get some consulting or some speaking agreements working with friends.
And podcast.
Absolutely. Well, and Chris is the perfect example, because he started PodCamp and ended up getting a really cool job with Jeff Pulver out of it. So there's a lot of things. Podcasting can be a jumping off point for a lot of different things. Chris has a great new media company called Grasshopper New Media. And on a group blog that we run for parents, there's a tremendous amount of readers there, and I'm getting more traffic to my website and more people interested just based on that. And the trafficking in dealing with people and helping people has been so much more profitable to me personally than a check for $2 from Amazon is ever going to be. And so I really think you have to look at why you're doing the podcasting, doing the things that you're really passionate about.
So one of the things I use my blogs, my podcasts, and my video blogs to do is to draw attention to other people. If I taught you one magic trick through everything I've ever done in the last year plus, if you talk about how awesome other people are, they suddenly think you're awesome and you didn't do anything. It's so cool. I have so many friends in this world now that because I like to talk about the things I think are amazing. I rock out my Uncle Seth's music. I hang out and watch Jet Set. And like Whitney said, I was able to throw her a couple consulting opportunities. So, the return on influence to me means that sometimes you're 2 steps away from something that you don't know that it's there and you don't know you're going to get it. And you might get this really cool opportunity that isn't a money opportunity. I have made $0 ever from Google AdSense. 0. I have a marginally popular blog. I'm not like an F-lister. I've had, my podcasts have never been all that popular, but that's whatever. But I did get people to suddenly start paying money for one of them after I left it. What's that tell you? But the return on influence has been great. The notion that when you use your product or your knowledge or your interest and passion to show off your personal expertise, the thing that you're interested in, the thing that you think you can contribute to the picnic, there's this thing that disappears, and it's like a corporate ladder. I'm not a, this isn't a real H. Ross Perot in America diagram, but so there's this corporate ladder. And in some cultures, in some communities, there is no way, say you're here, because I'll give you credit, you're not the mailboy, you're not the,
It's been outsourced.
you're not the admin. Right, there is no mailboy. But you're here, or you could be here, but you're not going to talk to this person here, right? So, you guys know what Vonage is, the phone company? Yeah. So my boss is the co-founder of Vonage, Jeff Culver. How do I know this guy? Because I sent him an email saying, man, I saw you on Rocket Boom. That was kind of cool. And I said, I wish there was more to the interview. And I said, by the way, we're doing PodCamp a couple of days before your big conference in Boston. You ought to come by and hang out. Why should I be able to talk to a multimillionaire founder guy when really in my career, I was about here, I guess. How should I be able to talk to him? Cool. He meets me at PodCamp. He hires me at PodCamp. Thinks that, it was fun. He had a good time, so he hired me. He's not a good judge of character. I have no resume. No CV. He has no idea what I've done. No criminal record background, nothing. No idea.
But he searched on the web, and everybody was excited about this.
I got the juice. And if you go to Julian's session earlier about the Google juice, you see what that is, right? So here's Jeffy boy, and Jeffy hangs out with like Barack Obama and these names that you read in newspapers and crap like that. But now I'm his like Pomeranian. Paris Hilton has like a dog. So Jeff's the famous guy, and there's the dog. I'm the dog. Yeah.
We just have to come in six packs so we can all have one.
So and suddenly I'm shaking hands with the guys who made Slingbox, and I'm meeting the guys who founded ABC, and the guys who. Juliette Lewis is Juliette Lewis. No, that's the actor. Juliette Powell from the Much Music and Music Goose days. She's a friend of mine. I had no idea this woman had like a background up here. She's just somebody I met, with Jeff. So we're just hanging out. Gee, you ought to come speak on my panel. I'm doing a special panel. That's return on influence. I mean, if you grew up watching her, well, now you're hanging with her. I mean, for a lot of people, Amber Mack, who was hanging out earlier, is somebody like that you just know from her, her personality and her presence on the internet. But that's the jump to me. I don't give a rat's ass about AdSense or Amazon. I never made a dime off of that. But I get a whole day job out of it, and I get to meet cool people like Whitney and Mark and all you guys. That's the best influence you could ever get. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think in my experience at PodCamp Boston, I had been podcasting. I had a website which I opened up last March. The podcast went live with me basically reading off cards and being really pathetic in June. And then it got a little bit better than that. And the newspaper picked it up because I was doing something interesting, and I made sure that I listed all the other family podcasters and everything else that were going on. And I showed up to PodCamp Boston, not sure if I should go and really nervous and everything. Chris Penn kind of changed my life. I met Julian. I was so scared to talk to Julian because, oh my God. And I know he's looking at me, but it's true. Because to me, he's like the hugest rock star ever. And so, to get to the point where I can just talk to him and hang out and have a beer last night and just talk. And we've been talking about books online and everything else, and it's a wonderful experience. And he is so smart, it makes your hair hurt. And Chris Penn's the same way. And these guys, I mean, it's just totally amazing.
Aren't so smart.
Mark Blevis, Chris Brogan. But Mark is really great. I mean, Mark and his wife is terrific in terms of all the social networking stuff. But literally, by talking online, we started to get together again. One of their friends said they wanted to meet me, and she hooked me up to interview Sally Smith, who's the person who founded the first learning disabilities school in the entire United States, because she works with her at the American University. And it took two things, and it went. I sent an email to Seth Godin, who most of you guys might know, and he has now hooked up something for PodCamp New York City, which I'm working on. And it's amazing because it's like the 6 pixels of separation stuff that Mitch Joel talks about, but it really does work. And who am I? I'm a mother of 2 kids. I'm married to an OBGYN. Yeah, I've been to school and stuff, but you know, part of this is I'm making up this crap when I'm going along, but other people now think that it's okay. So it's all right.
Yeah, I did a session with Chris and Bob Goyach earlier today on community.
Handsome Bob Goyach.
Handsome Bob Goyach. Yes. He shaved his legs this morning.
Give
That's
me
why we were
Bob
so late.
It's not distinguished.
So the leg injury, he's saying it was actually shaving his.
Awesome.
He's gonna boil.
Return on influence is almost, it's an extension of that whole community mindset. And I actually have been dealing with some companies that are looking at doing podcasting. And one of the things that we've been looking at in the model of doing podcasting is leveraging who they are and expanding on it and using podcasting to build influence. So brand, community, influence. To build on something that Mitch Joel was talking about this morning, the Harley-Davidson mindset. They've got a whole community. That's influence. Because that whole community has turned into a lifestyle, complete with that guy with his tattooed head. I had a point, and then I went into that whole shaving thing with Bob. The first time I actually heard the term return on influence, actually I was at the Corporate Podcasting Summit in the States, and Michael Gohagan, who many of you probably know, was on a panel, and he uttered those words. And suddenly this light bulb went up, and I was really curious as to what the whole concept of return on influence is. And I've actually started to do some I guess, hypothesizing and writing about it. But by way of keeping my comments short so that we can have more of a discussion, I'll tie into something that Julian and Chris had talked about recently, which is social currency. And Chris?
Deleted.
Chris just kind of mapped it out, the whole concept of social currency. So in the true sense, in return on influence and in social currency and internet economy, everybody starts off at zero. It doesn't matter how wealthy you are, it doesn't matter who you are, how much celebrity you have. You start off at zero and you build up your community. Maybe some people build it faster because they're a known name. But you build that network and you use that to create your influence. You start off as, and I lost my point again, that whole boil thing is just going to
It's going to hunt you down.
Well, boil.
But social currency is this concept where you as an individual build up your reputation by becoming involved in a community. And so Julian did a great dialogue about it recently on his, it wasn't even a podcast, it was on his blog, it was an audio file, you couldn't even get it on his RSS feed. Not sure why. But what you do is you participate in the community, you offer, and what Bob and I were talking about earlier is you have to give more than just your podcast. You participate in the community that's online on your website, you participate in the community that's extended beyond your website, and people get to know you. And you earn the trust. It's kind of like as this whole idea of socializing and being friends and going to parties, and you meet people often, and you go to school. And then the person who comes up to you one day and says, I need to borrow $5. Well, you've known this person, you've socialized with this person, you trust this person, and you share the same ideology. And that $5 is so easy to hand over.
Have you guys heard of Bum Rush the Charts?
Yes.
Yeah. I think Julian might know a little bit about it. So Bum Rush the Charts, I'm going to get it so wrong, and Julian will probably fill in the right blanks. But the very, very basic concept is we want to prove this point where that new media and social media have a power that is not in a really easy way measured. And the notion is we're all going to bum rush the charts on March 21st. Second. 32207, or up here, what is it, 07, 322? I get it wrong.
0703.
March
22nd.
22nd. We're all going to buy a song by Monk, Black Lab called,
I don't know.
Is it a good song?
you know what? What's this website called? Bumrushthecharts.com. Bumrushthecharts.com. Bum like, you know. That is the total perfect excuse for you to spend the 99 cents and make a point to the whole wide world, which is that this exact session is trying to prove to you is that we can make things happen through our influence and through getting to meet and know other people. And then you can turn that around and do other things like Homeless Nation and getting resources out to people who need it. Anything that is some kind of a cause that's important to you, you can help find and make that happen. My friend Justin, who does Something to Be Desired, it's a web series, it's sort of a sitcom drama. about a fictitious radio station in Pittsburgh. Their servers went dark because he couldn't pay the bill anymore, and his shows just went off the air. And it was right before Christmas time, so times are tough, money's tight, and he just said, help, because he was like back on his bills. Everything was just not so good. And so we just did a really fast campaign, and we got a whole lot of people to get the money going, and we got him back up and running. And I mean, he'll be okay till at least May or so, and then he's dead again. But it was awesome because we just got all these people to just rush it up. So
before you expand this chart, I want to expand something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is just before PodCamp Boston, my house was broken into, and I did a post on my site just so that people would know my podcast wasn't coming in because I lost some equipment. Within 2 hours, Chris Brogan was on the phone with me saying, "Do we need to take a collection to help you get back on your feet?"
We didn't do it. We didn't give him a dime. Wasn't that good?
I don't even think I have to explain further on what that says about the community and the concept of influence.
Well, and it's really weird because, I mean, everybody feels like family. I mean, half the time you are hearing these people in your head by having your earbuds in and everything else. And I feel like I know these people even though I've spent not all that much physical time in contact with them, so to speak. Just email and everything else. But you really feel like you get to know people. And I would not hesitate for a minute to have, everybody come, stay the night at the house and whatever. Because for me, it really is family. And it's about putting the trust out there and everything else. And there's very little separation now for me. It's not that there's the virtual world and there's the real world. There's just the world. And it's just a question of how much and how often you get to communicate with each other. And part of it is it's like the thing you tell your kids all the time. Love doesn't lessen every time you put stuff down there. It only grows. And that's true. And so you really have to treat people with the trust and respect that you want. Because, let's face it, if you do something and you make a mistake online or whatever, people are going to get all over you in about 52 seconds. But on that exact same level, people who know you are going to be the first ones to forgive you and or stand up for you. So it almost becomes more important than it's ever been before to be the original nice person and not to be a multifaceted weird person. Because it's going to catch up with you in about 60 seconds too, because that's the power of Google.
Hate those weird people. Linda Mills.
Thank you.
Who's not a weird person.
Right. But I wanted to add, I'm with Podcast User Magazine, and one of our co-founders and Jimmy Hastel and Richard Voges, who are both podcasting in the UK. Richard does 2 podcasts pretty much daily, and his listeners had amassed enough money to have Richard and Jimmy fly over to Chicago. They spent 2 weeks going through the U.S. It was the most wonderful set of podcasts I've ever heard, because here's a guy who's never been to the States before, 2 of them have never been to the States before, and talking about what they were seeing. They had a car, they went from Chicago down to San Antonio and flew back up again. And it was so popular that this year again, Richard is coming over with another friend, and they're going to go into D.C. and sort of do a little circle around the North Carolina in the Smokies and up to Philadelphia, and I'll see them. And it was just amazing, but that's the kind of power that ROI is.
Yeah.
Virgil?
Yeah, I just want to add something. Seth Godin wrote a book called The Idea Virus, and he talked about permission marketing. And a lot of what I've found with podcasting is I've been in it and into it for probably too long. But I've noticed that the podcasts that work and are successful, they have one thing in common. They are permission marketing. So they say, listen, if you're in, I'm into this, and if you're into it too, why don't we have a dialogue? And that's the key thing that I found. Promotes podcasts and promotes good media. And not to say that Google AdWords is good or bad. One of the results of that is you get traffic and you get people who want to be a part of it. It becomes an idea virus and it grows, it becomes its own thing. And in our world of podcasting, I think that what's going to happen over the next while is if people make good podcasts and make sticky podcasts that are permission marketed, that are permission, let's all participate in a dialogue. This whole industry that we're sitting here as an unconference is what we're going to expect and have in the future.
By the way, if you guys like Thai food, Sticky Podcast is really good.
He's been waiting for that. Somebody gives that opportunity. So, explain your migraine.
I made it up while I was standing here. I drew a bunch of boxes and squares and hoped I could come up with something. So imagine your show makes you the farmer. And what you try to build first when you're a farmer is, of course, oh, where's Andrew? Dude, there's a farmer here. He could be talking to me. You set out your plot of land, your podcast, your show, your video, whatever you're going to want to make, your blog, for all that matters. And that's a place to be for you. Or it's a place to belong for your community. It's a place where all people can come and do something, right? You know why MySpace sucks? Because, one, that ugly, awful editing page. There's really not a lot to do, right? There's not a lot to do there, but add people and subtract people and write comments. And I love the comments, but what at the end of the day, what's that do? So if you are working the right way and you're doing an audience, your audience isn't an audience, they're participants. Julian has a comment line. You can leave him comments, and then he'll laugh and call you names on the show and say, stop calling the comment line. Other people have comment lines, and they play the comments and do something meaningful. But you make your audience, say Frank the show. The reason that show rocks is because all these people hope every single time that their little video clip gets put on the show. I stopped watching when he ate
The very next show.
Very good. And then, by the way, there's all the other communities. So the other thing you do as a community person, as somebody who's looking for a return on influence, is if you don't put out to other communities, and I like people who put out. If you don't put out to other communities, of course nothing gets back in. You don't get any, these type of people might live or whatever, but you need these people, and you need, another whole 5 dozen of these, right? So if Julian doesn't comment on my blog, no one knows to go over it in over your head. If I don't go spend some time on Mark's blog and say, here's the book I think you should review, and then suddenly his readers come over and, link love. The old school adding links back and forth to people, writing in posts, not just writing their name, but spending the extra time to make it an HTML link so you can get people back and forth, becomes a build of your influence. By the way, somebody liked a blog post that I wrote, which Julian also liked. Your show is not your moneymaker or something, whatever that recent one.
Yeah, right.
We did. And Phil Windley, the guy who does IT conversations, Technometry is his blog, blogged about me, and I was just like, I had never been to his blog. It was like I had won a prize. And so I went on his blog and I wrote stuff, and then people commented, and suddenly I got all these new, my audience just went 20 more people for a while. And that's cool, because then it's my job to try to win them.
So you had 21 people?
20 matters. 20. My mom counts. So you get into these other communities. And then the real magic thing, the ROI thing that happens to me is that somebody else who has needs, like the homeless people, Mark who lost his equipment, or my friend Megan who wants to go to blog her really bad, so I'm going to try to find her money.
Yeah.
There's someone who has, and there's someone who has needs, and it goes through this magical system, and that's where the influence happens. And you can't explain that to people who are only thinking, where do I make the money? You know who thinks, where do I make the money? Big companies that are made to think, where do I make the money? You know who people who make it in the long haul? People who eat ramen noodles for a while, but then do this on the go. Or, sorry, Mr. Noodle? Mr. Noodle for us in the CA.
No, but for example, Chris put together this whole group of people, and we've got this whole parenting blog back and forth. And it's amazing. More people read what I write on there than actually listen to my podcast. So, and I've gotten some links back and forth, and that's great. I know that my podcast is not the thing that's going to turn everybody on, and that's really fine. But the fact that people actually read what I wrote just, totally floors me. I'm amazed.
And what you end up having, if you have a following, and like you have, and you deal with a specific niche, possibly, like, I'll use the example of Just One More Book, the podcast I do with my wife on children's books. What you end up having is suddenly you get publicists who contact you and go, have you ever heard of Dennis Lee? Because do you want to interview him? It's like, Dennis Lee? I grew up on Dennis Lee. And you get people contacting you going, oh, you're doing this great review podcast. Can we send you books? You have people who contact you. In fact, the very first interview we did on Just One More Book was with Evie McHenry, who did a vanity search on Google and found that we'd reviewed one of her books and contacted us. And the word is spreading through the children's literature community, and suddenly people are coming to us. We don't have to chase things down anymore. We have interviews queued up for and when I say queued up, I mean they're already recorded for the next 8 weeks. And we still have more requests coming in. So when people are calling us about saying, hey, would you like to interview so-and-so, they have a book coming out, it's like, yeah, can you wait until we publish it in August? Because if you want, we'll do the interview next week, but you're in the queue. Or whatever, I guess we're up to May now.
Wow. Just to make another suggestion also, is with podcasts, because they're RSS feeds, and because iTunes is PDF friendly, I would highly suggest that occasionally, if you want to drive traffic to the site, make a PDF document that's just one page with clear indication of what you want to do and a link to where you want it to go. And I've been doing that recently on my podcast, and I'm finding it's very useful in getting people to go from the audio experience who might not go to the site or go to the location you're trying to direct them to go to these sites.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, you know what's actually amazing about this, that concept?
Why don't we do that? I don't know.
What's amazing is, I actually blogged a while ago about the fact that, I mean, websites are a landing place and people are going there, they're commenting, and that's great. But at some point, people are going to stop going to web pages because everything is coming to them. RSS feeds.
So RSS feed is
So RSS feeds are going to, like, at some point, the web is going to be obsolete because the web comes to you. You don't have to go to it anymore.
To add one more thing to that comment, if you consider network television or television in general as one long RSS feed, the future is not in TiVo or in television or in podcasting. It's in an effective direct RSS feed of content that you can get. And that's what we're creating.
Dude, you should
as
be
an
standing
industry.
up here right now.
Virgin, what about
Yeah,
San
seriously.
Jose?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to find your ticket, but I'll get you into a show.
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to.
Get over to the other coast. I'll get you into a fun show.
Can I ask you a question?
Jared, go.
Okay. You know, the first time I feel old. Because, I turned 48 last week.
Happy
And-
There's a Canadian podcaster, Sonia Brock, who just celebrated her 70th birthday this week. Continue.
And I'm corporate, okay? I'm on the ladder. And I know how to get to the top because I can escalate. That's a strength. But I hear you guys talking. It sounds like, and I don't want to say the word charity, but it sounds like it's all a hobby. Because I don't hear any revenue coming. You might get thrown the odd consulting contract or whatever. But you talked about these books. I'd be charging for interviews.
Would you know what?
And so I'm trying to understand, when do you make the bridge to the next set? Because I understand the concept of community, but I need a little help.
So let me frame it. Can you hold it up, sir? Let me frame it, because we actually are now fighting off people's offers for money. In fact, just this morning, somebody came up to me and said, "Can I, when are you going to start taking money on just one more book?" The thing that we're running into is we have influence. We've built that influence within just one more book, and it's continuing to grow. Our download numbers tripled. The daily download numbers tripled at the end of January. Literally overnight, we went from here, I think we're getting about 2,600 weekly downloads now of our show. And we have that influence, and we're afraid that the instant we take money, that we will lose that influence, because people are going to go, "Oh, HarperCollins gave you $100 and you reviewed 3 HarperCollins books this month." And we only review books we love. We never look at who published the book. We go, "We love this book. We love this author. This is the one we're going to do." So we're afraid that the instant money comes in the picture, then that influence is gone. But the influence can then be put elsewhere. I mean, I've built up a body of work. I get consulting gigs all the time for podcasting. And why would somebody who can do a podcast for X amount of their own, like HarperCollins has its own podcast, and they're getting our service for free, why would they want to start using their money elsewhere when they can put out their own product and make their product better and build their own community? And then their community and the Just One More Book community intersect, and they become one larger book, kids-led community.
And just to add to that as a reference, I'm sure everyone in this room has seen the Bridezilla clip that was on YouTube. And when we first saw it, we said, "Wow, that was insane, and that was pretty heavy." And I'll tell you this right now, as a viewer who saw that, the minute I realized that it was a big marketing gag by some hair washing company, can I tell you, the trust and the honesty of the clip went out the window. And with podcasting, and what makes podcasting unique and difficult to monetize, is that balance between honesty and trust. I'm a musician, I make music, I play music on my podcast. If people like my music, they can go to iTunes and they can buy it. And that's where your circle of influence and your circle of value is in a podcast. It's not in selling your time on your podcast. It's in finding other revenue streams through your consulting gigs, through helping people in a community aspect, and understanding how you can take something that you're passionate about and turn it into a whole industry that supports you staying passionate about what you're doing.
So the ladder's gone, but remember the Pomeranian that's up here?
Yeah.
The Pomeranian probably should have a puppy,
Yeah.
right? So
That would be me.
Yeah, no, but that's the point.
For an event, if you want to relate it to and look at an open source software model,
Yeah.
where you're giving away the family jewels to build that trust relationship and all those types of things, and in turn you earn revenue from indirect resource. So be it support, be it custom work, be it that's how you're building your reputation.
credibility.
You build that credibility by giving it away, and then you have these indirect streams, as opposed to here's a widget, here's my $5, and you walk away.
Well, and here's Uncle Seth.
Yeah, Uncle Seth, who's building brand in a room full of fans who are having a real lot of trouble finding exposure, and we're doing the work for them. We spend a lot of our time promoting Uncle Seth on their behalf. Maureen, though, we can go from Kumbaya to cash later, I promise. Out of this session, because we got to go. Thanks for your time, though. We love you all. Natalie, can you just wave your hand for Peter? Peter, look in the back of the room. That's who's doing the session on Somebody Come Teach Me Podcasting tomorrow, so thanks for putting that up. There's a session tomorrow saying Teach Me Podcasting, where you guys all have to come and help Natalie and other newbies learn. Okay? Thanks.